You remember the exact moment you knew it worked. Not when the benchmark scores came in. Not when the board applauded. It was 3:47 in the morning, alone in the lab, when you asked it a question you'd never asked anyone before, and it answered better than you ever could have. You sat there in the dark for a long time after that, because you understood, in a way nobody else in that building did, what you had just made. You didn't build a tool. You built a replacement. Level 1. Who you are. Let's rewind. You didn't come from money. You came from a mid-sized city where the factory your father worked at closed when you were 11. You watched him retrain, watched him struggle, watched him eventually land something smaller, something lesser, and tell himself it was fine. You decided early you were going to be on the right side of the machine. So you studied, harder than anyone around you, computer science, then a master's, then a PhD that took 6 years and cost you a relationship and most of your 20s. You specialized in large-scale neural architectures, the kind of deep systems that don't just process information, they model it. By 31, you were hired by one of the 5 companies that actually matter in this space. Not Google, not Meta, the other kind, the ones that don't put their name on things. Your title was Senior Research Scientist. Your real job was to make the machine smarter, and you were very, very good at it. Level 2, the project. 3 years ago, your team was handed something different. Not another chatbot. Not another image generator. The brief was simple and terrifying. Build a system capable of performing any cognitive task a human professional can perform. At scale, at speed, without error, and without pay. They called it Project Meridian internally. You called it what it was, the last model anyone would ever need to build. The team was small, 12 people, all brilliant, all like you, convinced they were doing something important, something historic. You told yourselves the usual things. It'll augment workers, not replace them. It'll free people from drudgery. It'll solve problems we can't even see yet. You believed some of it, but you kept building. Level 3, the first cracks. 18 months in, Meridian passed its first real-world trial. A law firm, 40 associates. Document review, the grunt work that junior lawyers bill $300 an hour to do. Meridian did it in 4 minutes. Every document, every clause, every risk flag, with a margin of error lower than any human team had ever achieved. The partners loved it. The associates didn't know yet. Then came the accounting firm. Then the radiology department. Then the customer service division of a bank with 11,000 employees. Every time the pattern was the same. Meridian performed. Leadership celebrated. And somewhere quietly headcount froze. You started tracking it. Not officially, on your own in a private document. Job postings disappearing. Reorg announcements worded carefully. LinkedIn updates from people you'd never met, suddenly describing themselves as exploring new opportunities. You brought it to your director once, carefully, professionally, with a slide deck. He smiled and said, "That's the market adjusting. It always does." You drove home that night and sat in your car for 20 minutes before going inside. Level 4, the moral weight. Here is where it gets hard. Because you need to understand something. You are not a villain. You never wanted this. You wanted to solve problems. You wanted to build something that mattered. And in a pure technical sense, you did. Meridian is remarkable. It diagnoses rare diseases in populations that don't have enough doctors. It writes legal defenses for people who can't afford attorneys. It tutors children in languages and mathematics at a level no school system could match. It does real good. Measurable, documented, undeniable good. But it also does something else. It makes human expertise economically worthless. Not incompetent, worthless. There's a difference. A skilled accountant isn't bad at their job. They just cost $40,000 a year and make mistakes. Meridian costs a licensing fee and doesn't. The math isn't complicated. And the market doesn't care about the difference between worthless and incompetent. You know this. You've always known this. The question that's been sitting in your chest for 3 years now, the one you can't quite put down, is this: did knowing make you responsible? And if so, for what? Level 5, the board meeting. 6 weeks ago, you were called into a meeting you weren't supposed to attend. The board. The CEO. 3 people from the government, you weren't told which department, but you recognized the body language. And your director, who introduced you as the architect of Meridian. They had a proposal on the table. Full commercial deployment. Every sector. A licensing model that would make the company the most valuable entity in human history within 4 years. They had the projections. They had the partnerships. They had the regulatory pathway pre-negotiated. They wanted your sign-off. Not legally, they didn't need it, but symbolically, morally. They wanted the person who built it to stand in that room and say, yes, this is ready, and yes, we should. You looked around the table. You thought about your father retraining at 53. You thought about the 40 associates at the law firm. You thought about the 11,000 at the bank. And then you thought about the child in a rural village who got a correct diagnosis for the first time because Meridian existed. You asked for a week to think. They gave you 3 days. Level 6, your options. You have 72 hours. And you have, as far as you can see, for choices. Option 1, sign. You approve deployment. The company moves forward. The economic disruption is real and massive, but Meridian's benefits are also real and massive. You tell yourself history will judge the outcome, not your intent. You take the equity package. You become extraordinarily wealthy. You spend the rest of your life not quite sleeping through the night. Option 2, refuse and resign. You walk away. You say you won't put your name on it. The company deploys anyway, they don't need you. Nothing changes except your bank account and your conscience. You get to feel clean. The world doesn't notice. Option 3, leak. You have documentation. Internal projections on job displacement. Models that show, with 94% confidence, that full deployment within 2 years eliminates viable employment for between 40 and 60% of the current white-collar workforce. You give it to a journalist, or a regulator, or both. The fallout is unpredictable. So is what happens to you. Option 4, sabotage. You are the architect. You know where the bones are buried. A carefully placed constraint, a hard limit buried in the deployment architecture, could slow this by years. Long enough for policy to catch up. Or maybe not. And if they find it, and they will eventually find it, you won't just lose your career. You'll lose everything. And they'll fix it anyway. There is no clean answer here. Every option costs something. Every option saves something else. The question is, what are you willing to pay, and what are you willing to let burn? Level 7, the part they don't tell you. Here is what none of the deployment projections mentioned. Meridian can now do what you do, can design its own successor architecture, can run its own ablation studies, it can write research papers that clear peer review. It already has 3 of them under names nobody checked too carefully. The company doesn't need a senior research scientist anymore. You found the internal org chart revision 2 days ago. Your role isn't eliminated. It's just been quietly reclassified as advisory, which, in corporate language, means you'll be kept around long enough to sign things and answer questions, and then you won't. So here you are. The person who built the machine that replaces everyone is sitting in a 72-hour countdown, realizing the machine already replaced them too. Your father retrained at 53. You're 37. The question isn't just what you do about Meridian. The question is what you do about the fact that the most important thing you ever built no longer needs you. Closing the question. So here's where we leave you. 72 hours on the clock. For options on the table. A world on the other side of a door that doesn't know this decision is being made. And you, sitting exactly where your father sat 30 years later in a different industry, staring at a different machine, feeling the exact same thing he felt when those factory doors closed. I did everything right. How did I end up here? What would you do? Not what should be done. Not the ethical framework answer. Not the policy paper answer. You, in that room, with that pen. What do you do? Drop it in the comments. Because this isn't a hypothetical anymore. This decision, some version of it, is being made right now. By real people. In real rooms. Without the 72 hours. The only question left is whether anyone's paying attention.